Hey everyone, Mimir here. This is a continuation of a previous topic. If you haven't watched any parts before this, go check them out. And as always, thanks for listening.
And welcome back.
Hey, everybody.
I am Mimir.
And I'm Lennex.
And we're going to be continuing our conversation about the Alien franchise.
Yes, we are. And speaking of one of the greatest movies ever made, Aliens, I wanted to bring back talking about how freaking awesome that movie is. So many quotable lines, so good. What's his face? Henderson. Hudson. Sorry. Hudson is the name of the guy. Game over, man. Game over. What are we going to do now? Game over.
Yeah, I mean, God, he was such like a baby about everything, but also he's super relatable. Like, how would you react in that situation?
He's so cocky going into that. James Cameron even talked about it too. How that's how he wanted it too. Because the movie came out roughly post Vietnam era. So one of the things that James Cameron wanted to picture is that the Marines had like this real gung ho attitude, all this tech, all this firepower, and just this attitude they were just going to show up and whoop ass, and then they immediately get their shit stomped in by an enemy they did not expect.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is like I said, how would you react in that situation? Like you got all this tech and you think you guys are, badass and everything, and then all of a sudden, like, you're getting wiped out, like shit's going down and it's fucking nuts. Like you weren't expecting any of this.
They walk right into the heart of an ambush and it's bad. Like, they're lucky any of them made it out. Ripley literally showed up and then saved their asses. And what I think is still one of the coolest fighting sequences of just any movie ever. She goes ahead and pulls in with that armored vehicle, and then while they're doing that escape scene, they kill one of the aliens, but then it explodes and coats one of the other dudes with acid.
Yeah,
and then it's just like, oh yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Like the friendly fire and everything, just from exploding your enemy or getting too close to your enemy and everything. Like, it can have a bad effect on the other people around you.
Yep, and then there's that one where like they're trying to shut the door with the Marines inside. The Marines are still inside. They're the rest of the Marines that managed to escape, and one of the aliens is trying to like claw its way inside, and then they shove a shotgun in its mouth and just go, "Eat this," and pull the trigger.
Yeah.
One of the other really quotable lines from that movie. He pulls out that really old style like Remington shotgun, that 12 gauge, just cocks around and goes, "I keep this for close encounters."
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you don't want to. Not with this situation.
Probably one of the worst enemies you can fight at close range, the aliens.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not even talking about like their claws and their like little mouth and the tail and everything. Like they're up close killers, So, but like their blood itself is horrible for you.
That's I think one of the genius things too. Like, we see it in Alien Resurrection too, where you see like the three that are trapped in the lab together, and they're all locked in the room.
Yeah.
And then this sort of leads into the idea that they get more fiercely intelligent the longer things go on. And so two of them look at a third one, and then they rip it apart, and then use the acid from its blood to melt a hole in the floor to escape.
Yep. Yeah. They definitely they have an intelligence that's terrifying for what they are, like they shouldn't be that smart. Now, we kind of touched on it a little bit last time too, but yeah, like knocking out the power and, like you said, killing the weaker one to create like an escape and everything. Like that shit shouldn't happen. Like they shouldn't be that smart and, that animalistic and everything, but unfortunately, they are,
Right. I remember mentioning it in the first part, where the aliens that we see in the very first movie, for example, it acts with like an animal intelligence, but was weirdly cunning. We weren't quite sure about like it's like, oh, it's an animal, but it's weirdly intelligent. And then the second movie comes along, and there's a bunch of them, but we know that they've been active for like a very long time, and so we're left to wonder. It's like, oh, do they just get like that much more intelligent as time passes? Like, we it's something to think about. It's just like, is their intelligence cumulative? Just how smart are these things, really? Um, it honestly, it's something to be super concerned about, because Ripley even negotiates with the Queen in a sort of offhanded way at the end of the second movie. I mean, the Queen immediately, reneges on the deal, but then Ripley just starts torching the eggs. But for a second, it seemed like it was working. She understood what was going on, and the Queen was smart enough to follow after and everything. And yeah, it was something. So doubling back, the movie has like all like those great lines in it also, and I gotta say I love also how like Ripley is sort of like gaslit by the review board of Wayland Yutani executives when she comes home, where they're like, I mean, you admitted to blowing up the ship or whatever, and she's like, clearly I did that for a reason, and they're like, well, we can't verify that reason, and I'm sort of up for the idea that members of the room didn't really believe her because they didn't know about, like, the corporation definitely knew about the aliens. They definitely knew about the xenomorphs. Or at the very least, they were open to the idea of them. But I'm not sure how many people in that room were really, like, read into it. A lot of them seemed just like pencil pushers, that asking just, like, the same inane questions over and over again as a review. And at the end of it, they give that sort of half-assed punishment where it's like, well, we can't say you're in the clear because you blew up our ship, but we can't, punish you because technically you didn't do anything wrong that we can prove.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna, demote your license or whatever, and now you're kind of screwed. That's why Ripley is sort of left kind of having to take that job when that one guy, I can't remember his freaking name, Hicks, I think it was. I don't know. I can't. There's a lot of characters in that movie, guys.
Yeah.
You gotta forgive me if I mix up some of those names. I think it's even a joke in the movie that people mix up some of the names.
I don't know. It's also been a long time. I mean, the movies came out in '79. Well, the first one came out in '79, and I wasn't even alive yet. So.
Well, neither was I. I'm not that old. Jeez, man.
But yeah. So I mean, part of the whole situation where the executives, they had their own like ulterior motives and everything with it too. Like they wanted to keep, which is why they cloned Ripley later on. They wanted to keep the alien, and it wasn't just for like scientific purposes or anything. Like, I don't know, I can't remember if it's stated or not, if they wanted to use it as like a bioweapon. They wanted to try and train the xenomorphs or whatever. As like soldiers, or like use it as like a bioweapon, but yeah,
disposable shock troops, stuff like that. There's actually some pretty sick fan art out there of them doing exactly that, like aliens with like all these like tech pieces like hammered into their flesh, and like a human with like a big electronic visor, like he's playing a video game, like giving them orders and stuff, walking out of a dropship, which looks kind of cool, but in a very practical military sense, I also have to ask, like, how practical is that? I mean, it seems like the most effective use, if you were going to weaponize the alien or the xenomorph race, it seems like the most effective thing to do would be to just, use them as like a fire and forget weapon. Like, you fire them at a place, forget they're there for a while, come back later, and then just, deal with the xenomorphs. Like, nuke the colony or something like that. But then the question is, why not just nuke the colony? Like,
I think too that was part of what they wanted to do, was to have them as like basically the same thing the precursors would want, is like to unleash them on a planet and just forget about the planet, like if I think that's also maybe kind of why they wanted to control them, so that way they could just be like, okay, we're releasing it, it's going to run rampant, because how quickly they grow and evolve and everything. And they talk a little bit about that in or I don't know if they actually talk about it, but it's part of like the lore with Prometheus and Covenant or whatever, where the planet like grew quickly after that. Like there was like no life. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, maybe it was like part of the comic book or whatever that they talked about, where the virus type like organism or whatever that these turned into, or whatever the fuck it was, it infected like the planet and everything too. Like it helped like evolve the planet quickly. So I think maybe it was something that like the humans wanted to use, where they could knock out like a planet and then go in and be like in charge of the xenomorph, so they could maybe collect resources, or try and like be in control of that planet. Like you said, a fire and forget. Like they would unleash them and then come back later and be like, okay, now we're gonna kind of like clean up our mess, and now we're in charge.
I remember that from like the first discussion that we were having about it in the first part of the video. I'm personally a little more inclined to the idea that it has like more of like a context to the faith they have or whatever. At least like the engineers that we see, like they use it as like the ultimate expression of their faith, and also just like the different versions of the script for the movie Prometheus, where again, folks, you're welcome to interpret what you want. Like this is just the preferred versions that we've discussed. The version that I like is the one where like the engineers have like this big deal with like sacrifice and death being like two sides of the same, like using death and sacrifice and then life following afterward being like a sort of gateway thing. It explains why like the xenomorphs kill or take a life in order to generate one, or like like that's how we see like the guy take that big sip of like the black goo in the beginning and then fall into the lake or whatever, or fall off the waterfall, and he's doing something, but in order for it to work he has to give his life. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, maybe there's more to it in like a sort of like symbolic context. But Prometheus being Prometheus, they put aside all these grander ideas and schemes, and so rather than any of the ideas that we're talking about, they instead went with, no, alien was pissed off, woke up, and ran off to go destroy Earth because, why not at that point?
Yeah. I kind of meant more a little bit of like the human side of it, though. Like the reason why the humans wanted the aliens and why they possibly didn't believe, quote unquote, believe Ripley as much is because, I mean, they had their own agenda. So it's like they can't just be like, oh my God, you're right, and still carry out like their own devious plans. So they kind of had to gaslight her a little bit and be like, what? Like, that's crazy, Yeah,
and, like, meanwhile, I think, like, one of the guys in the room is, like, doing, like, a crossword puzzle or something. Like, he just couldn't be made to give a shit.
Yeah, so, they have their own, like, idea of what they wanted. And I'm sure they probably knew about the distress signal and everything before it was even picked up, like, by, Ripley's crew. Or, once they got word of it or whatever, they were like, okay, so, the research that we had going on, got out of hand. Like, let's cover this up so we don't look bad, and so, I don't know. They got their own ideas. Because I know the main, like, company or whatever,
Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah, they are not good people.
Definitely not.
So,
definitely not. We see that. I mean, they've always got like some bullshit secret agenda. Not just the fact that, what's his face? The human. I'm just gonna say it was Hicks because I can't remember the rest of the names.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
the Weyland-Yutani representative that they sent along in the second movie even says that he wants like a face hugger sample, or he wants some chest burster eggs to sneak past like customs or whatever once he gets back to Earth. And Ripley gives some comment about how it's like, you really think you're going to sneak samples of this behind customs or whatever? And he says something along the lines of, they don't know to look for it, so it'll be fine. And it takes me a second to realize after he says it, he's like, oh, he means to implant them in somebody, and then smuggle them past that way, because they won't know to look inside, say, a woman and child, for example. And I'm just like, oh, that's absolutely horrific.
Yeah,
he intends to implant people specifically so he can smuggle behind or smuggle chestburster eggs. That's just disgusting.
Yeah, he is not a good man.
No, it's absolutely gross. Can't can't say I really feel bad about him dying in that movie. Oh yeah, there's just so many good scenes and lines to talk about too. You know, things like, "Hey Vasquez, you ever been mistaken for a man?" It's like, "No, have you?" So good. That actually, I think that line was supposed to be based off of like an actual interview where like some actress, I don't know, was given that line by a reporter, and it was said in a very snide way, and her response was like, "There's like, no, darling, I haven't. Have you?" And old school clapbacks.
I did want to bring up the actor for the Xenomorph though too. I cannot pronounce his name. I'm not going to try. He was like a young Nigerian guy who I guess they picked the role because he was 6'10", and like he was very tall, very long legs and everything.
Gangly guy.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly what it was that I was trying to like look up and everything. But there was something like behind the scenes or whatever that they talked about with him. But I guess he was like a very shy guy and everything. Ended up dying of sickle cell. I think he was like 39 or something like that. I said earlier.
Yeah.
But
real shame.
Yeah, and I guess that was his only role. He was offered to come back, and he decided not to. And then he went on to, what did he do? He went on to like do something else. I think he had like a business or something like that, or whatever. But yeah, he was offered the role to come back and everything, and because he declined it, they ended up doing like more puppeteering stuff and everything. But it was still pretty cool. I mean, but could you imagine like this guy, like it was practical effects. There wasn't like much CGI, like that's what I love. I love when like movies go practical with things.
Absolutely. We got spoiled on CGI, and I think studios also are spoiled on CGI now because, I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do stuff you could never imagine to do practically with CGI, but there really is something to be said for the magic of a practical effect.
Right. Like if you're standing there and this huge ass alien is in your face, and it's really in your face. It's not just someone with like a green screen puppet, like in your face, and you have to pretend to be scared. Like this thing with the lighting and everything, and all the effects that are going on right there in the movie, like that just makes it all the more real,
Speaking of practical effects, the alien queen from the second movie, that's a practical effect. She's an actual like puppet that they made, like an actual like a big animatronic puppet. I'm not sure if it's as big or bigger, or maybe it might be smaller, but it's up there. But it's somewhere on par with the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. As a matter of fact, I think it was basically used as like the audition piece for the guy that made it was the same guy Spielberg used when he made Jurassic Park. And his example for is like, well, why should I hire you? Is like he pointed at the alien queen, and Spielberg was like, well, fair enough.
Yeah, and the T-Rex from Jurassic Park was dangerous too. It was super dangerous, like because they would have to climb inside it to fix things, and like things were like short circuiting and stuff. Which I mean, doesn't really bode well for the guy who built it, but I mean, it was also like it was quite different for its time. It wasn't something that was normally done. Yep. It was very different.
That thing still looks terrifyingly real, by the way. Like it, because they had to make it look real, so its skin and everything still looks real.
Yeah,
it's a real looking T-Rex. It's a physical object that exists, and it moves.
Yeah,
part of the reason that it moves is that. As the muscles and controls in it, excuse me, the muscles and controls in it would sometimes malfunction, and the reason they'd malfunction is because this thing will get coated in water, and you can't get this thing soaked and expect it to function. It's actually one of the things that slowed down production for the movie a little bit when they were filming. They could only film in like 5 or 10 minute segments or something like that. With the rain on, and then the T-Rex would be soaked, and they would have to stop production in order to pat it down And I'm just imagining a crew of guys whose job it was with towels and blow dryers to go up to a giant T-Rex, and it's like, clean off the T-Rex, please.
Yeah. I want to give a small shout out. I believe it's the Hacksmith on YouTube. His channel's way bigger than mine, but I wanna point it out at the very least. They do a lot of superhero stuff, or like they're trying to build like an actual lightsaber with like plasma and everything.
Yeah, no, I've seen these guys before. Yeah, actually specifically because the lightsaber project you're talking about.
Yeah.
Have they also tried to build like versions of Thor's hammer and stuff like that?
Yeah, they've done stuff like that. But what I wanted to really point out was they did is it just called a mech suit? I don't know, but like the suit that Ripley's in.
The big suit,
the power,
the power hauler, whatever. Yeah.
It is, they created one.
That's cool.
They didn't do legs though, because the top was just kind of too heavy. So what they did is they put it on tank treads. They built like a tank tread bottom for it. But they built everything else. They made it the power loader. They made it with like all real hydraulics and all real metal and everything. Like they actually built this thing. It's not a costume. And they were like smashing cars with it.
Get away from her, you bitch.
And like you would get inside it and pilot it.
That's awesome.
So like these guys, they do a lot of really cool stuff, but
that's fun. I've never really dug into these guys' channel. No, I got to find that video.
Yeah, and that was one of the big ones that I really liked. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched when they started that journey and they were trying to figure out how they were going to do it. But yeah, like how badass would it be to have your own like power loader? Even if it was one that had to like drive around or whatever, it wasn't like as good or as I think they actually might have made it like real size though. I think the whole like top part of it and everything, the actual like mechanics and stuff of it, I think it actually is like life size compared to the movie, which again was fucking big.
Yeah.
They might have even made it slightly larger because it had to be because physics. But I don't know.
In the movie, I remember the effect they did. It wasn't stop motion, which I think is what they were considering at one point. I think what they did was they had a team of like 5 guys with pulleys and ropes, moving the limbs and stuff off screen.
I think part of it was a guy in like a suit, and like she like was strapped to him or whatever too. Like he was moving around puppeting it. If I remember right, I could be remembering wrong, but
the technique you're describing, I think, requires a mannequin in the front, not a full size person.
Maybe I want to say I remember hearing that it was actually Sigourney Weaver, like strapped to this guy though. I could be wrong, but yeah, there was like a big like dude that piloted like a big puppet. As far as I'm remembering, I'd have to look that up again, but
yeah, like piloting a puppet. I was gonna say piloting all that equipment plus having a full size human strapped to you.
Well, I think it was made to look like the machine, but I think it was all lightweight stuff, and then had her like kind of strapped to him, and because he was a big dude too. This is just something I remember reading like years ago. But again, I could be completely wrong. But I guess that kind of brings me to, I love those Halloween costumes that do that, like with the kids like sitting up front and like the like baby carriers and everything. I've seen like really good ones where like the dad walks around in like the power suit and everything and has like the kid strapped to his front that's all dressed up like her.
I've seen that ones actually. Yeah, it's actually maybe it's just James Cameron costumes, but I've seen ones for both Alien and Avatar that do that.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of funny too. Like the whole Avatar and like the mech suits on Pandora and everything. Like those things are pretty similar, except they got hands and stuff. They're not like these big like forklift hands or whatever.
Right. James Cameron might be a little bit of a Gundam nerd. Just he doesn't like talking about it, I guess. But yeah, he puts mech suits in a fair number of his work. I gotta say though, it's man. Now that you mention it, there are a lot of similarities in that regard to those mech suits.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No. The more I think about it, the more parallels. Now I can't get my mind off of it. That's crazy.
There's also this other guy, James Barton, I think is his name. He's like this English guy. I don't know exactly where he's from. I just know he's got like the British accent. So wherever over there across the pond.
We're Americans, so as far as we're concerned, it's all the same to us.
But he also made an alien costume too that he can wear. And he did make he's made like an Iron Man suit and everything. All his stuff is 3D printed. And like electronics and stuff, like he codes it all and builds it all and everything. He made like a big Hulk Buster suit that's like it's got like higher stilts and everything, and the controls for it go to like the elbows of the Hulk Buster suit, and then he's got like controls that move his like lower arms, the forearms and everything, and the hands closed and all that. But he did another alien suit too, like a xenomorph suit, and I think he made his look like it was supposed to be more industrial. I think he 3D printed like a bunch of like screws and bolts and stuff like that and made it look kind of industrialized, like as the xenomorph. I don't remember exactly what the costume looked like, but it was pretty cool. So yeah, a lot of people love this franchise, and a lot of people love like the xenomorph design. And there was a couple xenomorphs that I kind of missed last time. I can't remember the name of it, but they ended up changing. I think it was supposed to be called like the Beluga xenomorph or something like that. It was like one of the like early names or whatever.
Like an aquatic variant?
No, it was this weird bluish white looking one that they used in the movie, but they changed the name of it or whatever and changed the design a little bit. Okay. But it was still, like a walk around, like regular one. But they called it the Beluga because it had like this weird like kind of like dome on the top of its head or whatever. Like it had like this, bigger bump or whatever on the top of its head that kind of went back instead of that like nice smooth like slick back look or whatever. And I think that was supposed to be like one of the like original like xenomorphs. And I was just looking at the concept art too for the original design for the xenomorph, and maybe I'll throw that up on the screen too when I do the editing and everything, but it looked so weird and it looks very like insect like. And I'm so glad that they went with like a different design because these things are terrifying.
Oh yeah, like they're just inhuman enough. Like it's at some point it's like, yeah, this is also a guy in a suit like for the practical effects, but or it's like, this needs to like move like a puppet or whatever, but like the way it moves and like the way that it acts or whatever, it does a really good job of coming off as non-human.
Yeah.
Like it's got just enough alienness to it where the human brain looks at it and says, this thing is this thing is everything I need to be worried about. How it's moving, how it's acting, it's setting off every instinct I have that this is a problem.
Yeah, I like the concept of they're basically, I don't want to say unstoppable with their reproduction, but they're so adaptable with their reproduction. I'll say it that way, where they can literally almost infect anything and come out the other side as like an advanced killer with the aspects of whatever it just infected. We talked a little bit about that too in the first part, but yeah, it's, and like in the video games and everything too that I kind of brought up earlier, running around on the ceiling and everything as a xenomorph was a lot of fun, and you get to feel it from that perspective. So you're crawling through vents and you're trying to kill the Marines and stuff like that. And the way that the camera shifts, though, when you're like playing that was a little nauseating, I guess, because you would walk up to the wall, hit a certain button, and you'd start kind of crawling up the wall, and you could continue up on the ceiling and everything. So the whole, like, everything's shifting, like, all at once, and you're like, whoa, but it was a lot of fun to run around and be that terrifying killer, and you get to play as the Predator, too. So
there's a lot to be said for games where, you get to be the bad guy, or you get to play as the villain, for a change, because the stereotype in every game is, of course, that you are the hero. I mean, that's like the basic fundamental thing of a lot of games, for various reasons, which I won't delve into right now, but should be fairly obvious if you stop and think about it. But it's a nice change of pace. Yeah, you play as the villain for a change. You play as the monster, and you see the game, or you see the environment from the monster's perspective. Like, all right, how can I kill the good guys?
Yeah, and I mean, it's fun to play like the Marine path and everything too, like, but to play as something that you don't really get in anything else, like you get to be the hunters. It's just, I don't know, it's a lot of fun to kind of go through that type of stuff.
Heck yeah. I am also a fan of like the themes that they sort of have running through the first two movies. The first two movies, I think, have something a really good symmetry with each other. The first two movies have this sort of like these matching themes of like the first one, like this is gonna sound a little bit weird, but bear with me here. So the first one has like this sort of like this theme that of childbirth going on, because like the AI mother. And then, like, the way that we see, like, the crew waking up and, like, coming out of their cryotubes and everything. And then there's, like, all this symbology or whatever with the alien. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and say something that someone has probably been thinking for a while, and that has definitely been said many times on other analyses and stuff like that. There's a lot of sexual assault themes that go on with the alien, and that's one of the reasons that it scares people a lot. I mean, the face hugger, the way it impregnates someone... Like, I mean, I just said it myself. It impregnates someone. It forces a phallus-like object down your throat and deposits an egg, which then bursts out of your chest, and the thing itself is not exactly a subtle innuendo, and the whole thing sort of has like those themes to it. Like there's like this whole subtle sexual assault thing that goes along with the idea of the xenomorph to begin with, but there's this really good symmetry I did want to bring up about how the first one has like themes of like motherhood and child. Well, not so much motherhood for the first one, but like childcare or childbirth. And it even ends when we see the alien from the Nostromo getting blown out the airlock, and it's tied to the cable from the harpoon gun. You remember that?
Roughly.
It's sort of like spinning out in space, like attached to like and. People have been like, oh, it's like it's attached to an umbilical cord. It's more like, visual symbology and stuff like that. It's...
I think the word symbolism.
Moving on.
No, do you get that reference at all?
Yeah, I get it.
Boondock Saints. No, it's he... sorry, to jump to another series or, another franchise or whatever.
Mimir's being smug as he's looking at me right now. It's not flattering.
Well, because in one of the scenes, he's like, well, what is the symbology behind that? And he's like, I think the word you're looking for is symbolism. What's the symbolism? So, and that was
Boondock Saints.
Yeah, what's his name?
I can't remember which one it's from. It's been a while since I've seen those films.
It's from the first one, but it's who's the dude that plays Green Goblin? Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, Willem Dafoe.
Yes. So in that, William Dafoe is like he's a little snooty, and
very snooty.
And one of the scenes he says, like when one of the detectives asks him, well, what's the symbology behind that? And he's like, it's symbolism. The word you're looking for is symbolism.
Yeah, yeah, as he's ragging on the detectives.
So when you said symbology twice, I was like, oh, I got it now. Like the first one, I let it
okay.
slide. I thought of it, but I was like, the second time, I'm like, I gotta say it.
Okay, you got me. All right. But the second one, the theme sort of evolves with the theme of motherhood, where, this is more in the director's cut for the films too, especially. But Ripley has a daughter. And so we see in the second movie also in the director's cut that her daughter, because she was gone for so long, her daughter actually died of not old age. I think her daughter died at like 57 from like a disease or something like that. But her daughter like lived her whole life while she was gone and passed away, and then Ripley missed out on it.
Yeah, I don't remember that part so much.
It's in the director's cut. There's a scene to it. Like Ripley's like sitting in her room or whatever, and she like reads like the video message from her daughter or whatever, and it's a very sad thing where Ripley realizes she's missed out on her daughter's entire life, and of course we know that like her daughter also had that adventure in the game, which is canonized, where her daughter goes through her own horror type adventure with androids and aliens aboard her own ship. But there's a what is it? Yeah, sorry, getting back on track. So the theme of motherhood then evolves in the film where there's of course like the queen, which is like the mother to like the huge hive, but Ripley taking in Newt, who is a motherless child, and immediately latching onto her, and like treating her like a person, treating her well, and leads to like useful information and Newt being useful, and then that big climax where Ripley's like, I can't leave Newt behind, I have to go back and get her, and it's the whole reason for the final conflict.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
They mostly come out at night. Mostly. That's I don't know why, but that I say that line probably more often than any other like movie reference that I ever make.
It's so quotable. It's like well, mostly you only use it for defense. Mostly.
And I don't get it, because it's like I think it's just because she says mostly again, like that it's stuck with so many people, just the phrasing of it. Because really, if all it was they mostly come out at night, like people, okay, well, nobody would really care. Or if it's like they come out at night mostly, like I still don't think people would care, but it's because it's like they mostly come out at night mostly.
But also like this scarred child, like this clearly traumatized child, like relaying this information she's picked up to survive for so long.
And Newt did such a good job like surviving that long on her own.
What a great child actor too to portray that.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how like, okay, maybe the xenomorphs were leaving her alone because I don't know, maybe just because it's human DNA doesn't mean that it would be good enough. Like maybe they want like a full adult.
Oh no, there were other kids in the colony.
Were there?
Yeah, there's another scene where like kids and stuff are playing, and I think in the, I can't remember if it's like the novelization of the comic or whatever, but I remember someone pointing out that like the reason she's called Newt, it's a nickname that the other kids gave her. It's because she's good at getting into places and like or just like discreet hiding holes.
Yeah, I think they talked about that too, but
like her parents didn't actually name her Newt.
Well, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know it was a nickname, but I guess maybe I just didn't think about, like maybe they just didn't care, but then again, like they are like these super smart. I mean, they're not like super smart, but they're these super smart killers who track down other people so easily. And yeah, she was hiding and everything, but I don't know. It just seems like she probably shouldn't have lasted that long. So whatever she did to stay alive that long was impressive.
I remember she built herself like that little man cave, which a lot of people nowadays look at and be like, "Oh, I should build a man cave like that." It's pretty good.
That kind of reminds me. When I was younger, I had these like like cardboard boxes down in our basement. We had like a Michigan basement.
Yeah.
And it's like the half wall or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And we had like all these cardboard boxes down there. So what we did is we opened them up and created like tunnels and like duct taped them all together.
That's cool.
And yeah, we had like this huge like corner of the basement that was covered with like these little tunnels, and we built like these towers and stuff up so we could kind of stand up, shoot Nerf guns out of it and everything, you know. But we had, you know, like one little corner that was like this huge box. I could have been like a refrigerator type box or whatever, you know, just like this massive box. And we would hang out down there, like a bunch of pillows and stuff, and just kind of like chill back there, me and my friends, and then like me and my sisters and stuff. So it was kind of reminiscent of like Newt's little corner or whatever, like little like vent thing that she was in.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know why, it was one of the coolest things just to have like a little hidey hole like that.
You make your own fun when you're that age, especially in a pre-internet access age where every kid has an iPad in his hands.
Yeah, well, we had a home computer, but it was like, I think at that point it was
them dial-up days.
Well, it might have been like just after dial-up or something. Like it was really early on. Like I don't even know if we had internet for like a long time. We had a computer, but I don't think we had internet for a long time either. Oof. So it was, you know, we were playing Freddy Fish and things like that on our computer and stuff, you know, and that's another one. Maybe we should play that.
Mimir and I are dating ourselves here, but he and I are definitely both old enough to have heard the phrase at some point, get off the computer, I need to use the phone.
Yes, yeah.
Oof. But, so, you know, off the depressing subject of how old we both are, yeah, no, Newt's survival was, in hindsight, like pretty miraculous. I mean, everyone was super surprised. Ripley was super surprised this year.
Yeah. I mean, you go in to what you think is just a massacre of this colony, and there happens to be like one little girl surviving. Like, that's impressive.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I don't know, like the whole idea with having her as like a lone survivor and everything, it kind of like begs the question of like, was there somebody else who also survived somewhere else? Like, did somebody else get locked away somewhere? You know, like, were there any other survivors anywhere else? Or was she actually just the only one? Like, what if they missed somebody?
Well, that person, I'm going to say, should have definitely made themselves known when they heard all the gunfire and the shouting and the activity going on. If they were too scared to come out, then, you know, them's the breaks. Sucks to be you. Sorry, pal.
So, again, I guess back to the video games and stuff, too. I didn't really play the new, like, video game stuff. I know this one streamer that I watch, Zine, which X33N. We're doing a lot of shout outs today. But he played that through multiple times. He's gotten really good at it and everything too. He does a lot of other stuff like Minecraft, and I think he's doing like the new God of War right now. But he plays like Alien kind of somewhat often, I guess I should say. Like, you know, he does it like once a year type of thing, kind of like as a memorial type thing or whatever. Or I think every so often, like if he's done playing something else, he's just like, okay, well, let's head back to this, you know, because it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen gameplay with that. I've seen like other people, like other YouTubers, like I think Jacksepticeye. There was this one dude. I think he's a British guy, and he does like this really funny voice and everything while he's playing. I mean, I think it's just his voice, but like he's like, "Oh my god," you know, like it's like the way he talks is just, I don't know. Maybe it's insulting for me to laugh at that, but whatever. Like he's doing it for entertainment. I don't care. But yeah, he does like like really funny jokes with it and everything too. Like when the tail like drops down on the table, or you know, like when you're hiding underneath the table and it slides across the floor or whatever. He's like, oh, I hope that's your tail, you know, and like the way that he's like saying it and everything. And I don't know, there's a lot of really funny jokes like watching people get scared with those games. And I'm kind of a baby when it comes to like games like that, you know, like jump scare stuff. I tried to play Outlast, and there was a part where I got stuck and everything too. But it's horror games or like scary games like that, like a little rough for me to play sometimes, you know.
Oh, definitely. I'll own up to the fact that as a kid, especially, I didn't do well with horror games. I'm better now, but I was really bad as a kid. I remember just certain games would just scare the absolute crap out of me, and I wouldn't be able to finish what was going on just because a situation where I'd be like, I don't want to do this now. I want to go home. I want to go back to playing fun stuff.
Yeah.
There was a what is it? There was one game for the PlayStation 1. It was Planet of the Apes actually, and it wasn't anything especially scary about it. But I do remember that. So there were levels like where you're wandering through tunnels, but the rendering for the game only goes so far, and it renders more as you walk. It's meant to represent like your line of sight, like you can't see past a certain point.
Yeah.
So I could hear angry, scary gorilla noises ahead of me, but all I could see was a literal wall of black, and I wouldn't see the scary gorillas charge at me until they literally jumped out of the black.
Yeah.
And it was quite scary. So I would just know that it's like somewhere in the darkness that I cannot see through, there is scary gorilla man who's going to jump at me and probably beat the crap out of me.
Yeah, and I think with like the Alien game, there's a lot of hiding that you have to do like under tables or in lockers and things like that.
Yes.
Which again, I feel like the Xenomorph would be smart enough to realize like, hey, you just ran into this room, you know, like I know that you're in here somewhere, you know.
Right. The game has to soften it up enough that you have a chance of surviving, but you know, it has to be somewhat forgiving. But I know that you can be found, like if you don't hide fast enough or if you don't hide well enough, it'll find you.
Yeah, I do know that too. I've seen, you know, like where you're hiding in the locker, you think you're good or whatever, and then it comes over and like rips open the locker and kills you. But I don't know. I still feel like maybe if you play it on a harder difficulty or something, like it's more realistic or whatever. But I wish they would make like an updated version of the one where you get to play as the Xenomorph. I think that would be badass. Like, imagine playing a game like a Dead by Daylight or whatever, but you're a Xenomorph.
That'd be pretty freaking sweet, actually.
Like your friends, and there might be. I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but your friends are like space marines trying to escape the ship,
or the
and
ship's crew, yeah,
you know, and you play as the Xenomorph running around trying to like kill your friends. Like I think that would be pretty sweet. Or like, you know, if they have like a better like Alien versus Predator, like I don't know, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Definitely. They definitely need more updated Predator games. I think that they have made one, and I haven't tested it yet, but I remember the older ones that I have played. I think it was called Concrete Jungle. It was the one where you played as the disgraced Predator trying to recover lost bits of technology from humans. I remember specifically that it was very much a product of its time, but I remember you at one point you were fighting a bunch of like cyber ninja prostitutes at one point. Oh yeah, make a face at that. You should. It's they basically you played as a predator and you survived your hunt even though you were disgraced, and so you got banished to a planet, and then a couple years later you get picked up and you're told by the other predators, it's like, hey, the humans have gotten smarter and they've learned to start capturing our hunter teams. Your job is to go out there and figure out, like, you know, what's the source of like all this tech that they're stealing from us, or like where's all this data coming from, and you need to kill it. You need to make amends for the mistake you made. I guess because you're the one that caused all this in the first place. and you're jumping around and like you fight robots and stuff. I remember the robots look a lot like the ones from RoboCop 2, or the Ed 209s. That's the one. Like the big two-legged chicken walker ones with the machine guns. Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was a decent game, and like you get more weapons as time goes on. But like your primary ones are like the collapsible spear, and then you get like the shoulder-mounted plasma guns and stuff like that.
I think I might have played that one too, because isn't there like some like upgradable menu or something like that too in it?
It's been a while, but I think so. I'm gonna go ahead and say yeah.
Something where you could like kind of like increase your skills of certain things or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, or at the very least, I've played something very similar to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it in my head, and I remember doing stuff where you're like,
it's an older game.
Yeah, you're hiding in a tree and you're doing like calls and stuff to try and lure humans out or whatever.
Oh no, it's all urban, but you can.
No, okay, so maybe I'm thinking of a different one that's like a newer like Predator game. Where like you're hiding in a tree and you can do like the how predators have the mimicry.
Yep.
So like you're calling out to like the other soldiers or whatever that are out there and trying to get them to like come to you so you can kill them. I remember like ripping out their spines and stuff. You had to do like finishing move type deals.
Oh yeah.
And you get like extra points and stuff. And you would like rip out their spines and their skulls, and you would get like extra points for doing stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I remember the. I'm trying to remember what it was from, but there was also something in the game with you fight clones at one point, and then another one where it ends with you doing like the classic Predator like execution scream with the skull and spine in your hand, and then you fly off, and it turns out you like deface the side of like a corporate building or something with all the blood or whatever. Like left like some sort of hunter's mark or whatever, like gang warfare basically with the Predators, like don't fuck with the clans.
I think is there Predator DLC for Mortal Kombat or Injustice or something? He's in a fighting game too, and of course one of the finishing moves you can rip out somebody's spine.
Would not surprise me if he's in a fighting game. I don't think I've seen him if he is in a fighting game, because I've seen a bunch of those videos that people make and put out where it's just like opening lines or whatever, and like what would a Predator even say?
I don't know, but I do remember seeing him as like a DLC in some fighting game. I don't remember which one it was though.
Oh.
But yeah, he definitely would be fun to play. Like, and I don't know if they have a Xenomorph one too, which that right there, how I talked about wanting a Alien versus Predator, like if they got DLC for like a certain fighting game or whatever, like with the two, that would be pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, there's a lot about the whole Alien franchise that I just absolutely love. Like, I think the last time I actually watched them though, might have been, God, I want to say it was probably close to like 5 or 6 years ago. My ex and I, we rented them. We went to Family Video when Family Video is still like around, because I don't think Family Video is around anymore.
It was so long ago you were still able to rent movies. Gotcha.
Well, I mean, I think we couldn't find them online without like doing like some Stars subscription or something like that or whatever. I don't remember exactly. So what we did is I was like, why don't we just go to Family Video since they're still open and they're not too far. So we opened up an account and then went and rented like the first like 2 or 3 movies. And then we watched all those, and once we finished those, we were going to start watching like Predator, because it had been such a long time since I seen them all. But yeah, I think that was the last time I watched at least the original movies, because I don't remember when like Covenant came out or Prometheus or whatever. I don't remember like the years that those came out.
I didn't. They were fairly recently. I didn't see. I didn't see Covenant in theaters. I saw it afterwards, and I'm glad that I didn't pay money to see it. I saw Prometheus.
I want to say Prometheus might have been like 2016 or something like that. Honestly,
I think I saw Prometheus at a showing with some friends, and I remember thinking it was just it was okay.
Prometheus was 2012.
2012.
Yes, it's fucking 11 years old.
Okay, that explains it. Yeah, no, I saw it in the military. We all sat down and like it was just on TV one day, and we just all watched it. Me and a couple buddies.
Jesus Christ. I thought it was like still newer than that, but
Mimir is once again lamenting our age. Yeah, I remember I watched a couple of clips from Aliens and just prepped myself up for this, and Alien also just reminded myself how awesome these movies are, and I watched a few clips from Alien 3 and quickly reminded myself how much that movie sucked.
Alien Covenant was 2017. So that's the one I was thinking of, like, that was more recent. I mean, that's still not recent. That's 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched an Alien movie in 6 years.
I heard that movie was absolute garbage, and I got summaries, and then I read a summary for it myself. Like I listened to YouTube stuff also, just describing like what the movie is about, and I was just like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't watch this movie.
It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good either. I think that's the first look at when David
went to the engineer's homeworld.
Well, I that's when he like finally got the, let's call it a recipe. Finally got the recipe right for his like xenomorph, which I believe is the one that we see like like I said before in the original movies.
Right.
Because those take place after the like movie Prometheus and Alien Covenant. But yes, that because it jumps on the ship, and it's like it's doing that like weird hissing thing where its jaw like kind of clatters, and it's got this weird like vibration to its mouth or whatever. And it's hanging on to the ship and everything, and it looks terrifying. And they obviously souped it up a little bit because it's CGI and everything, but it definitely has that alien feel, like that xenomorph feel to it. Instead of some of the other ones that they had in like the earlier movies, with like the weird variants, or like in Prometheus and stuff. Because Prometheus, they show like the quote unquote original alien. Because it's not like the normal looking xenomorph that we're familiar with. And its jaw is weird. It kind of does like this shark thing. I don't know if you've seen those like
it's the jaw detaches or whatever.
Yeah, it kind of like comes forward and like elongates or whatever. There's no like little mouth, or I don't remember if there's a little mouth, but like when it does like its little screech thing, then the jaw like goes like pops forward and extends like a shark's mouth.
Like its mouth pops out of its teeth and gums pop out of its mouth.
Yeah. So there's that one, and I think that's like one of the more like original type ones or whatever. And I think I read somewhere that they're one of the stronger ones until like it gets like engineered properly. But yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah, it always seemed to me again that those movies just they really missed out. Like I talked about a little bit in the first one, and I'm not sure if I like summed it up, but it's like, they really missed out on what their themes were supposed to be. Like the first one was supposed to be like this, we went looking for what we thought was the creators of humanity, and with them we uncovered what looked like some giant research facility with, ships and weird black goo and these weird snake creatures and all this stuff, and these explorer scientists who are supposed to be like a crack team, but they all come off like idiots for some reason. And one of the guys, for some godforsaken reason, is drinking his sorrows away on the ship after they discover everything, and is like, "Oh, I guess I thought we'd find aliens, but all we did was find all this proof and all this technology and all this other weird stuff. I guess we failed, and now I'm sad about it." And it's just like, are you out of your minds, man? Like this place is going to become like the new science hub for humanity. Like the scientists are going to spend decades going over what you guys found here.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know if he's connected to this other guy that because I don't remember the name of the other guy from the comic book. But there was this one scientist who injected one of the androids, and he promised him too. He's like, I'll just do, like one drop or like one like milliliter or whatever it was, and he injects the android with the entire syringe. And
what a dick.
Yeah, and like it actually like transformed the android, not like in a way where you would become like a xenomorph or whatever, but he went like nuts and everything, and like kind of mutated in a different way, which that's just fucking bonkers. If it's not just I don't know why I said bonkers, but whatever. It's fucking crazy. I don't know why that it makes sense, because it really doesn't. Like, it infects other life forms. An android is not a life form.
They make it very clear that, like they're synthetic life form and that they're not human on the inside. Like,
but
the aliens can sense that. That's why they don't affect them usually. They might kill them, but they won't infest them.
Yeah, and for some reason, when this android gets injected, like, he gets connected with like the hive mind and everything. I think he can actually hear and see like through like their whole connection and everything, because they talk again about like one of the queens on like the planet or whatever could control some of the aliens like off world and on other planets and everything like that. So it's weird how they have like a connection. So I think it's not just, kind of like a B situation. I think it's way more advanced than we even really understand what they're trying to go for. But
I don't know. It seems to me like they just, again, were throwing ideas at the wall, and they weren't entirely sure what was going to stick or what they wanted to go with for a lot of this stuff. I mean, that's kind of a cool concept, don't get me wrong, but I'm also thinking to myself, this sounds like the kind of thing you also come up with when you run out of ideas.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know when that comic was made or anything, but during my little bit of research and everything, I stumbled across it. But got any final thoughts here?
I'm definitely going to probably rewatch the movies in their entirety. I watched a couple scenes from both, and I just kept thinking to myself, wow, I got to really rewatch these. At the very least, I'm rewatching Aliens, because, man, that rescue scene, and then watching that final fight with Ripley and the Alien Queen was absolutely incredible. I got to watch the whole movie back to front.
Yeah, I think I'll try and see if I can find out where they're on, and maybe I'll watch those tonight.
Heck yeah.
But well, thank you guys for watching, or listening, I guess I should say. Yeah, we got another episode of this, a previous one. If you haven't listened to it, I don't know why you're here now at the end of the second one.
I admire your spirit, kid, but maybe you should start from the beginning.
But we also have like some gaming stuff that has been coming out on Mondays. We got our merch shop. Some of the stuff in the merch shop is disappearing soon, if not already. So go ahead and check it out. Leave a comment, leave a like. Let us know if you want to hear more of this. Let us know if you want us to play any certain games, or if you want to hear certain topics. Yeah, do all the things. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and as always, if you want us to revisit a certain topic, go ahead and hit us up. We'll go ahead and we'll take those into consideration. If you want us to talk about a specific movie or a specific character, heck, I'd say go for it. Personally, I'm waiting for somebody to request us talking about Hudson, just so we can just spend maybe a good half hour, 45 minutes of just Mimir and I quoting back and forth. Game over, man.
Yeah. I'm kind of a little bit surprised too that nobody's brought back any Warhammer stuff yet, but maybe we'll have to get more into that since we're talking about some space stuff.
Yes, he said Space Marine. Guys, he's been saying Space Marines for so long through like just referencing this material with me. In the back of my mind, each time I've just been biting my tongue trying to keep from yelling something like "For the Emperor," "Purge the alien."
But thank you guys for listening. We will see you later.
Peace.